All right, what's up, everybody? This is Kyle. Welcome to WMMA Fighters. I'm live with Janay Harding. How you doing?
Good, thank you. How are
Hey,
you?
I'm doing good. Thanks for being here.
No problem. Thank you for having me.
Oh yeah. So I've wanted to talk to you for quite a while, actually. So it's pretty awesome to finally get you on here.
It's exciting. It's really good.
Yeah. So I know it's early over there, right? It's at 10 a.m.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's in the morning.
So did you get some training in this morning?
Yeah, just some quick cardio and just food, and then I can chill out for a little bit. And I've got another session this afternoon. Some like the last sparring for the camp, and
Mm-hmm.
then I'm good to go.
Well, I appreciate you spending some time with me. It really means a lot to me.
No problem.
So you fight next week, right? Bellator 207.
Yeah, that's right. On the Friday, the 12th of October.
Yeah. How's preparations and everything going for that?
Yeah, really good. Lucky enough for when I got the call. I was kind of prepping for a boxing fight at the time, so I was really already working on my cardio and kind of that high intensity camp type training. So that was really good. And I've come to Sydney. I'm originally from the Gold Coast, but I've come to Sydney for my camp again, like I did for my last Bellator camp, and it's been really good. I've added a couple more people into this camp, so it's sort of create a little bit more diversity into my training, and I've had a little bit more variety when it comes to training, not just training at the one place.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's going to be super beneficial leading into next week.
Absolutely. That sounds terrific. Really. So your nutrition and weight cut and everything is solid and on point.
Yeah, this time around, not that I've had, not that I've been struggling with a featherweight cut, but just to get it like tip top, I've jumped on board the Lockhart and Leith team for this fight camp, and I've got that as my nutrition plan. So obviously, a lot of fighters at the moment are having a lot of success with that, and I just think it'll be a lot more beneficial when it comes to like replenishing and all that sort of stuff and doing it by the book. I'm usually pretty calculated, and I mean, my last cut was one of the best cuts I've ever had. But you can always improve, and you can always kind of be at your optimal body kind of weight and everything like that. So this time around, it's been really good, and I kind of haven't really had to stress about it and make my own decisions when it comes to food and all that sort of stuff. I kind of just stress free and left it in their hands, and it's been really good.
Oh, that's really great to hear. I know the weight cutting sometime can be pretty awful. So
Definitely,
that's
yeah. I've had
definitely
some
awesome to hear.
terrible ones.
So will you
Yeah.
be spending a lot of time at featherweight, or is this where you want to be?
At the moment, I mean, I've got another three fights after this next weekend left on my Bellator contract at the featherweight division
Mm-hmm.
because they currently don't have any bantamweights. But possibly like looking at how my body's sitting after being maybe a little bit more active than I have previously in my career and continuously fighting regularly, it will probably naturally bring my weight down. And maybe after these fights, I can look at how I'm sitting and how hard it would be to make it back to bantamweight that I have fought in the past, but at the same time, it was before my body kind of developed itself because I was a lot younger, and that makes a massive difference when it comes to like muscle and all that kind of thing. So we'll see how we go. But I think I would like to go back down to bantam because I
Mm-hmm.
think that would be a great division for me, and I mean, there's a lot of good fighters there, specifically in the UFC, but at the moment, I'm happy with Bellator. I'm happy with this featherweight division. How many girls that they have signed to this division, I think it's really strong at the moment.
Oh yeah, definitely. So this is really exciting. Now your opponent is I cannot say her first name.
I think people have been saying I hope I'm not saying it wrong, but people have been saying Sinead.
Yeah, Sinead
Um,
Kavanaugh. So yeah,
yeah,
she's pretty tough. So putting in has your approach been different to this one, or you just staying consistent and just working on improving where you can, and um, have you been focused a lot on learning new skills?
not necessarily. I
Mm-hmm.
mean, a lot of things have stayed the same, and I've really been working on my gas tank, and like not that I've ever really had major like I've done a lot of distance fights, but I don't think I've had confidence in my gas tank at the same time, which really changes the outcome of your performance when you're not really backing yourself or you're a little bit hesitant to be using up all your energy maybe in that first round or second round or whatever it is. So I think for this fight, it's definitely a different mindset, but kind of the general gist of things have stayed the same. I've been working on my striking. That's what I'm commonly most well known for, and as well as that, just working on really getting rid of just like any hesitations when it comes to the gas tank and that kind of thing.
That's great. That is great. Yeah. So you're, you know, I really enjoy watching you fight. And what's great is your wins are all by KO/TKO. So
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
you
Which is
definitely don't mess around.
yeah. Yeah. Obviously, I'm hoping to keep that going as well because
Yeah.
I enjoy finishes and they make for good fights and good performances. So it's either I like win by TKO or I usually lose by the majority of my losses have come from decisions. So
Right.
it's one or the other.
Right. Exactly. And sometimes the judges are just, it's like they weren't watching the same fight as everyone else.
Yeah, a
It sure
little
seems
bit
that way
sometimes.
sometimes. Now I
Yeah.
gotta ask because I love it. So where did the nickname come from? Because it's pretty awesome.
Thank you. It kind of was more of a brainstorm. I mean, like we said, in my very, very first fight, my amateur debut, I got a TKO win, and I was pretty dominant in that one. And I kind of, I guess, for lack of a better word, just blasted through the girl. So that was sort of like pretty relevant to the Hollowpoint kind of name and the Hollowpoint, like what it does and all that sort of stuff. So
Right.
we were just sort of brainstorming around that thing, and I really liked the alliteration and the color scheme that it would bring, all that sort of stuff. So it was really just like I think a combination of a few things, but mainly we just thought it would be relevant and it would look good. So it
Yeah,
was good.
definitely. Definitely. Yeah, it's pretty sweet. I like it. I dig it a lot.
Thanks. So I
It's
appreciate it.
yeah, it's definitely unique. So how do you feel? You know, well, okay. Before I get into this, getting ahead of myself. Uh,
Yeah.
what got you into MMA? Kind of like, what was your journey, and how did you get to where you are today?
I originally started in martial arts, but in karate when I was a lot younger.
Mm-hmm.
And even though I accomplished my black belt and I kind of was doing that for a little while, I think about 3 years. But then I sort of recognized the more mature I got and the older I got, how kind of westernized it was a little bit, especially where I was and being in Australia and everything. It wasn't kind of like that disciplined karate kid that you expect it to be. So I seeked out something a little bit more challenging, a little bit more mature. And I guess when I first started MMA, I recognized how like diverse it was, how you could just interpret it yourself. You could just really kind of flow with whatever pathway you wanted. And I think that gravitated me towards it. And then after I'd done it for a couple of years more as a hobby, I sort of, I mean, you watch everyone compete. It's pretty hard to not want to compete yourself. So after I finished school, I had my first fight and I really enjoyed it. And I was like, oh, you know what? This is what I want to do. And this is what I want to dedicate my life to, because it's like I'm going to enjoy this a lot more than studying or any other. I've never really found a passion for any other sort of career path. And this is it. So yeah, ever since I've kind of been working on that and dedicating towards the end goal.
That's great. That is great to hear. I love, you know, anytime you find what you love and then you pursue it and you make it what you do. So that's incredible.
Definitely.
Yeah, I love those stories because a lot of times it's you know, a lot like that. And you don't always go into it saying, hey, I'm going to be a pro fighter. You know.
Yeah.
Yeah, a lot of times
It's
it's
hard at the start too, because you couldn't really see a definitive path for females as well, because we weren't necessarily in the UFC when I first started and all that kind of thing. So you kind of just like, oh, you don't really see it as a career path most of the time until somebody kind of stands in front of you and is just like, oh, you either want to do it as a career or a hobby. And I was like, oh, like that makes sense. So
right.
I should give this a go. Yeah.
Heck yeah. Yeah, it's yeah, really cool that you're doing this, and what do you think is some of your favorite things about it?
I mean, a lot of people enjoy the glory and everything, and that's such an adrenaline rush and all that kind of stuff. But I love the challenges that it just constantly faces. It brings like so much diversity to my life. It's brought a community that I don't think I would have ever kind of ventured into if I didn't get involved in mixed martial arts. And that's something that I will take with me forever. And I can take, like, what I've mainly noticed is that you can just take it across the globe. And I mean, it's so consistent. I mean, you start up a conversation, and someone's like, what do you do? You're like, oh, I'm a fighter, this happens, blah, blah, blah. They have some sort of relative facts to do with that. And then you just have a conversation about it, and you meet people from all over the globe. I get to go to gyms everywhere in the world. And I mean, we've got that common ground of we both do mixed martial arts of some sort. So that's really cool. And I think it's kind of given me so many experiences that some people will never necessarily get to have in their life. Like, not just the fights themselves, but being able to travel and all that sort of stuff. It's really exciting.
Right. Yeah. I mean, if you love to travel or do stuff like that, I mean, it's really really awesome experience. So where have you gone to compete?
I've I fought in Hong Kong,
Hmm.
but just before I had my Bellator debut, I fought Muay Thai in Thailand a couple of times now, which was really exciting. Just a really diverse kind of aspect of martial arts, and how they more of a culture kind of shock when it comes to that kind of thing.
Right.
And then I went to Las Vegas to do my Contender Series media and everything like that. So I got to go to the UFCPI, and I mean that was really exciting in itself. That was such a cool experience. I fought in San Jose, and then mainly all around Australia, like Queens, like Brisbane, Gold Coast, Sydney, Mackay, and a couple of other places. And that's all been, yeah, really cool. But I think I've also being able to train in the UK and Thailand. That was really exciting, and that's going to be something. And some people and friends that I've made on those trips are going to be people I'm going to take with me for a long time. So that's all really cool.
Right. Right. Absolutely. Just great experiences all around. Seems like so.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's awesome. So so you mentioned you're known for your striking. Did you feel that when you really started getting into MMA, um, did the striking feel natural from your karate background, and how difficult was it to develop a ground game?
Yeah, it definitely was a lot of a easier transition than the jiu-jitsu side
Hmm.
of MMA. I kind of moved, and I definitely gravitated towards the striking anyway because I enjoy it maybe a little bit more. And then especially like kind of starting from absolutely square one when it comes to grappling, and kind of starting like a quarter of the way through with striking, made it a lot easier for me to just continue kind of striking and really work on that sort of thing. And maybe a tiny bit hesitant, I think, towards jiu-jitsu. And as much as I enjoy it now and I love it and it's such a big part of my training now, I think early days I was a little bit hesitant to get beaten all the time and to get tapped out and to get smothered. It's
Hmm.
not like a lot of fun, especially in the early white belt days. But it's so much different now because obviously maturity and general experience has changed my outlook. But yeah, definitely made it much easier for me to stay as striker and to really stay in that lane for a long time.
Oh, that's great to hear. Um, so yeah, I always like that because it's obvious, right? You're a striker. It's going to be more time consuming, more difficult to pick up the ground game. Um, so
Definitely, yeah.
when you are in your camp, do you how much time do you focus on learning new skills, or how do you break it down of learning new and coming to a cutoff point where you're just like, all right, we just need to focus on what I do.
Yeah, I think the new skills, you sort of learn the skills around maybe a combination of what you already know.
Hmm.
When it comes to jiu-jitsu, I'm always sort of learning new stuff because there's just so much information that you can learn in that kind of aspect of fighting. you're never going to know even like a quarter of the amount of knowledge that's out there. But when it comes to my striking, it's just sort of like changing up my combos, maybe adding shifts and feints and certain things that like combined will make a stronger kind of technique altogether. And that's not really going to overload my brain too much, and it's not going to kind of add too much information that I need to learn in like 3 weeks or whatever, and put too much strain on that kind of technique. Whereas I think that you kind of approach them differently. Whereas jiu-jitsu, I'm just sort of, especially towards the last couple of weeks, I just sort of try, even if I go to jiu-jitsu class and they're teaching like leg attacks or something, I'm just mainly taking away the detail, not necessarily the technique itself, just small things and structural details and kind of underhook aspects or whatever it is that is going to just improve my game all around, not necessarily just in that one submission. So I find that kind of thing is a lot easier. And then when it comes to striking, I'm lucky enough that I pick things up quite quickly, but I'm just happy to kind of stick with my game and just branch out a tiny bit more than what I already am.
Okay. All right. Yeah, that's really interesting. I feel it's kind of a generic question, but it's one that always intrigues me.
Definitely, yeah.
So yeah, I think that's pretty interesting. Now, so when you get an opponent, anything can happen in this the fight game. Your opponent can get hurt. It can be a change, whatever. So do you spend a lot of time, or do your coaches spend time watching film on opponents, and do you guys break that down?
Yeah, definitely. I personally watched some film before I even came to Sydney, because I was in a different camp. And then when I got here, the guys kind of already knew who she was. And then another one of my coaches just so happens to be Irish and has fought on Bama a couple of times himself. So he has actually shared the card with Sinead for like I think 2 or 3 of her fights or something. So that was really good, kind of having him around and him being very familiar with who she was, not just now that I've been matched up with her, which has made a big difference. And we can all kind of just critique what I personally will be avoiding and doing more of. So that was good.
Yeah, definitely. That's another one. You never know what you're going to get with that question. What I've noticed anyway. So
yeah,
I'm always fascinated by that. Go ahead.
I think in the past, like I wasn't that concentrated on watching film on people. I think especially early days, not necessarily in my last like 2-3 fights, but early days I was just kind of like did my own thing. And it was a lot harder to get film on people when you're an amateur or just coming through the professional ranks, especially in Australia. So I think like now bringing that aspect in has definitely helped, but I also don't like kind of like solely rely on it as well. I don't need to kind of worry about it too much.
Right.
Ultimately, a fight's a fight, and it's always going to play out anyway. It will. There's not really much you can control other than your own self and how you really perform. So I think that makes a massive difference.
Nice. Yeah, that's really interesting. All right, so now we're going to get into the hard hitting questions. Not really. So do you it's a staple here to talk about food. So I know being a fighter, fighting at this level requires not just training, but eating right. But what are some of your guilty pleasures when it comes to that?
I'll openly admit to anyone that I'm addicted to sugar, but unfortunately, it's not something that it's something that I have to put off for a few weeks when I'm in fight camp. But definitely, like I'm mad foodie, especially having traveled a lot as well. I kind of always seek out cool cafe. I think breakfast would have to be my utmost thing to like whenever I travel, I find a cool cafe. I get like the coolest breakfast that I see, and then usually it's like a sweet breakfast. And then that's like my main kind of to-do thing wherever I go. And I'm also a massive coffee drinker, especially, I mean, being Australian, we have pretty good coffee over here.
Right.
And I've been told by a couple of the Americans that they agree. But yeah, like I would say guilty pleasure would just be like mainly chocolate. Just being able to fit, even if I like get the sugar-free chocolate or something when I'm in camp and I can kind of, and it fits in with my macros and everything like that, then I'll go seek it out and I'll go find it.
That's awesome. Yeah. So, do you like pizza at all?
Yeah, I love pizza. I love
Okay.
like mainly all fatty food. I think when it comes to savory, my favorite would probably be like a fried chicken of some
Okay.
sort, even if it's like a fried chicken burger. But like,
Nice.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
So I asked that because so we've
Go
gotten into pretty big debates over pizza. Do you think pineapple belongs on pizza?
Um, I don't hate it as much as people do. I don't like get like aggressive when as much as I've seen people do when it
Right.
comes to pineapple on pizza. But it's definitely not my first choice. Like, it's not
Right.
something I'm not gonna be ordering a Hawaiian straight up. I'm just gonna
Okay.
be going with a chicken pesto or a meat lovers or something like that. That would
Okay.
be.
Yeah.
I think I can do without it, but
Mm-hmm.
I'm not getting angry that it's there. Each to
Yeah.
their
Yeah.
own.
Some
Yeah,
people take it pretty seriously.
pretty highly debated subject.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it absolutely is. Like I said, we asked the hard hitting questions here. So,
Oh, that's
um,
very true. That was a
yeah.
big one.
So, I know you're busy, and again, taking time for me is really appreciated. But what do you like to do when you do have time to yourself? What are some of your hobbies and interests?
Yeah, well, at the moment, I mean, I've kind of just been running around chasing like everything up to do with this camp because always so much more than just training and eating. It's kind of like medicals and media and anything like that, all those kind of responsibilities. So to be honest, when I'm in camp and I am kind of really run down, sort of. I just like to play games. Like, so I've just been playing Xbox a lot recently, or like watching Netflix. One of those two things where I can just kind of zone out and just not really care too much about anything, and just be kind of by myself and watch or play games.
Hmm.
That's my main go-to.
Yeah, that's great. That's great. So do you have a favorite movie?
Oh, I really like Warrior. That I thought that was like a really good movie. And actually, I rewatched the Batmans recently. Even though there's a lot of debate about it, I watched like the Dark Knight Rises and the trilogy there. So those are probably up there as my top.
Mm-hmm.
I'm a massive Star Wars fan though as well. So
Nice.
I would have to say that I kind of have too many, and I've seen a lot of films. Like, I'm a bit of not a movie buff, but I've seen a lot of films, and I think
Right.
when I travel, I go to the movies a lot. So
Mm-hmm.
kind of like one of those things. But I'd probably say Star Wars would be up there. Not necessarily any one particular. I wouldn't really go towards the new ones as my favorite. I
Mm-hmm.
do like them, but more maybe on the old ones.
Yeah. Yeah, I was about to ask that. So,
Yeah,
I know. I mean
yeah,
that's tough. It's one of those things that I'm a big fan myself. Like I like the new ones too. I think
yeah. I've been going to the premieres, but
yes.
doesn't necessarily mean that they're
Right.
gonna kind of surpass the old ones, if that
Right.
makes
Right.
sense.
No, no way. Um, yeah, there's a lot of great stuff out. Um, so a couple more, so I won't take any too much more of your time. Um,
Right.
so what would you list as your three keys to success?
That's a good question. I would have to say strength, not just physically, but just mentally, just being strong and resilient against the highs and lows of any sort of journey or any career. It doesn't matter what it is, you're always going to have the ups and downs, and just being strong minded against any kind of adversity that you have to face. Confidence in your skill, confidence in yourself, and confidence that this is the path that you deserve, and you should like constantly keep growing and aiming towards. And maybe the third one, I would just say persistence.
Okay.
Consistency and persistence is kind of like the key to any success. Anyone will probably say that. And I mean, out of all the books and success stories I've read, that would make a lot of sense. Just be consistent. You're always going to overlap anyone that's sitting on the couch and and you can't kind of like half-ass, especially something like MMA. It's such a good example because you can't half-ass it. You'll easily get it like shown in when it comes to your performances if you've made any shortcuts or done anything wrong there. So I think just being persistent and consistent at the same time is
Right.
good.
Yeah, that's huge. That is huge. Yeah, I thank you again for coming on. I really enjoyed talking to you. I know you got a lot to do. Got a week out, and yeah, you're gonna do really well. And I'm looking forward to seeing you back out there.
Thank you so much. I enjoyed speaking to you too. It's
Well,
good.
thank you. I'd love to talk to you again if you're ever up for it. And
Definitely.
you know, I wish you the best of luck and good luck with the prep and getting it done and doing what you do.
We'll do. It's kind of like home run now, just on
Yeah.
the other end, and hopefully the go time is the fun part. So
Yeah, I
we'll be
can't
there
wait.
soon.
Bellator 207 is going to be a good one. That's a solid
It's gonna
card.
be
So,
really good.
yes.
Yeah, I'm excited.
Yeah. So, congrats to you and good luck. And we'll talk again soon.
Awesome. Thank you
All
so
right.
much. Thanks for having me.
You're welcome.
Cheers.
Bye.
See you later.
All right. That was Janay Harding. She fights next week, October 12th, Bellator. It's on the Paramount Network. She's going against Sinead Kavanaugh. Sinead is 5-2. Janay is 3-4. Janay is a knockout artist, though. This should be a good one. The whole card from top to bottom is pretty solid. So make sure you check that out. We will be uploading these videos to Facebook and YouTube, but this is where they'll be live from here on out. I think it went pretty well for the first one. So we'll have a lot of results tomorrow. Got a lot of fights going on tonight and tomorrow night. So probably post them all Sunday. But yeah, until next time, we have a couple fighters lined up next week. We're gonna keep these live streams and interviews going, and getting as many as we can lined up, and just trying to stay on top of it all. There's a lot to cover, and there's a lot going on, especially at the end of the year. So UFC 229 tomorrow, don't miss that. All the WMMA athletes made weight, several of them in championship weight. So definitely no drama, which is always good. So everybody have a good night, and thanks for tuning in.